probably not brand new to you, but brand new to this channel, that being the King, very prolific DBD content creator. I just posted the link to the video in the chat. It will be down in the description below on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe to this creator, especially since it's our first time watch of them. And their video that we're going to be watching today is why most of the community hates Wesker. I've kind of lightened up on Wesker in terms of facing him in more recent memory, but he used to be one of my least favorite killers in the game to face, mostly just because of like his weird hitbox and how a lot of his community seems to play him very aggressively. He kind of has like a community that typically likes to win and plays very intensely to win. So the way his player base plays as well factors into that. But let's see the King's take on why the community dislikes Wesker.
One of their most successful chapters ever, introducing Resident Evil into Dead by Daylight and Nemesis alongside Jill and Leon, Dead by Daylight figured, why not do it again and bring the community another Resident Evil chapter, and let's see how it goes. With some early leaks forcing their hands in the anniversary stream, they quickly announced that Project W was coming into the fog. The hype could not be contained, and everybody was losing their minds over Wesker joining the fog. In no time, the Wesker chapter was in full swing and people were enjoying it everywhere, having another taste of Resident Evil in Dead by Daylight, and a killer's who power seemed super fun, just tossing survivors around. There was a very small minority that weren't too happy with this chapter, as they figured, why are we getting another Resident Evil chapter? And on top of that, why do we have another infection-based killer that's so similar to what we already received? But it was so much positive for this chapter that it heavily outweighed those opinions and thoughts. So where did this all go wrong? Why do people now hate Wesker? What was the big switch, and how—
I mean, he's fun to play as. He's not fun to play against a lot. Like, and dodging his M2 can be fun, but it's like we discussed earlier when Ace was here. It's like he's in that situation that like Huntress is in, where a slight bit of lag at all, or a slight bit of latency, which is very common in DBD, makes his hitbox look super janky and inaccurate, and it doesn't feel good to be hit by stuff that it doesn't look like you should be getting hit by, like no matter what character it is. And he is just a machine for this. I would argue he is worse than Huntress. To my experience, tons and tons of my Wesker hits look way worse than Hatchet hits that I get hit by. Like Huntress hatchets, I'll get hit behind a wall sometimes. I go like, oh my god, the beach ball, you know. But like Wesker, I feel like it's like every other bound I get hit by, I'm like, that didn't look like that hit at all. And I don't like. There have been people that have posted Twitter posts about this, trying to show that like, hey, his hitbox is fair. It's just the latency. But it's really hard to like I said, it's really hard to visually not get hit by something on your end and have to accept that it hit you somehow, even though visually like you dodged correctly, he missed. But apparently it hits anyway. It's just disgusting. Like it just doesn't look right.
We fix this moving forward. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm your host, the King, and welcome to Why People Hate Wesker. Let's jump on in and dive into everything. As explained, and you're familiar with the timeline, on August 30th, Wesker was introduced into the fog, and people really enjoyed this chapter. There were thousands of clips going around of people finding out new things, enjoying the voice lines that Wesker had to offer, seeing the new characters in Ada and Rebecca, and really resonating with the Dead by Daylight X Resident Evil chapter for the second time around. Numbers reflected this, and sales were going through the roof for all the success that it had generated for the companies. Now, after a few months of everybody tossing survivors around and hearing the voice lines for quite a while, people started to poke a little bit of flaws in Wesker, and this is what started pretty much the train of hate to start. And hate is such a strong word, it's just more of a dislike at this point in time. The number one thing that people noticed was that the hitbox was a little bit crazy, and Dead by Daylight knew about this issue as well. We had changes made to him where the hitbox was reduced and then increased, and then they felt comfortable in a nice middle ground that people still weren't too happy with. At first, you would be completely around a corner, and based on latency and ping and just a larger hitbox, unfortunately, you would get grabbed from some crazy angles, and there's tons of clips of people showcasing this.
It's terrible.
Now, some of them can be deduced to ping, as I said, while others can really just be the hitbox. Dead by Daylight acknowledged this and made the hitbox a lot smaller. However, during this time, it was a little bit too drastic of a change.
Yeah, like I'd run straight into people and not hit them.
Literally brushing by a survivor, and you wouldn't hit them. Now, this didn't feel good on the other side, so Dead by Daylight kind of found a middle ground, and they left it there. So, obviously, on both sides of the spectrum, people weren't fully satisfied, thus giving that initial hate. So, times continued, and as we received chapters after Wesker,
which were very bad,
evident that the chapters just weren't that good. Now, this is a whole argument in itself, and people can debate this all they want, but comparing just strict numbers on how much the community has played Project W in August of 2022 and a few months after that, comparing to the next chapters that we received, it's very evident that there were much more players resonating with that chapter than they did with any other chapter that we received in the future from that point on. We had a peak of about 70,000 players during August of 2022, and the only time we were able to pass that was in this month for the anniversary chapter itself. So it took almost a full year for us
almost
to get
a full year
peak amount of players. So people were quite interested in this, and that resonated with those players quite a lot. With chapters like the Knight and the Skull Merchant coming out, people didn't really seem to care much about them and resonated more with the sweet talking Wesker that we got. The guy that makes the game fun for the killer, giving you voice lines, a fun mechanic to throw survivors around. People just seem to continue to play him because they really enjoyed that power. We finally got a killer in DBD after such a long time that provided quite a good amount of fun for the killer side. And of course, as I said, survivors initially loved this too. They love hearing the voice lines. They love just seeing Wesker have,
you know, I like hamming it up at Wesker. You know, I'm about that.
And being tossed around was quite fun as well. And then it got quite excessive. Wesker players flooded. I mean, Wesker was
most played character in the game.
Chapters that killers just stuck around to playing Wesker.
Most played character in the game.
Not only did they get a fun killer, but they got a strong killer as well. And in the right hands, Wesker would be so deadly. Some of the add-ons made this exceptionally well, and it wasn't too map dependent as well. You could play Wesker on pretty much any map and still be quite successful with this. Thus, survivors found more and more and more Weskers in their lobby, and ultimately thinking this would eventually cool down and people would stop playing Wesker. Well, evidently, as we said before, the next two chapters just weren't it. So people continued to play Wesker and continued to play Wesker and continued to play Wesker to even this point in time.
Yep.
Now, with all of this going on, tempers seem to be flaring where people just straight up
I just got tired of seeing him. Right? Like, it's not even just like the hitbox issue. It's like there was that, like, when they kill switched him for that one, for that like little period, and I played Survivor, like I was like, thank God. Like I actually got to see like most of the roster again. It was so nice. But now it's back to like, there's a Wesker 1 in 3 matches, and it's like half of the game is Dead by Daylight and half the game is Dead by Wesker. And it doesn't matter how fun a character is to face, or how, and I would argue he's not the most fun to face. Like he could be the most fun character to face in the world. And it's just like getting that like game after game after game after game after game. It's obnoxious. The whole point of this game is that it's an asymmetrical experience. And if every game starts feeling the same, it starts ruining the asymmetry, which is the whole point of the video game. So you can't do that.
EC'd when they're getting Weskers. It reminded me a lot of old Legion, and comments on Twitter started pouring in about how much people disliked Wesker and how much they see him in the game. Now, if this wasn't evident enough for you, take a look at the most recent kill switch that we received for Wesker, where there was a bug for him that was very game-breaking.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Kill switch him for just 1 or 2 days, and half of the community members rejoiced and were so happy that they don't have to play against Wesker, while the other half were like, what the heck? Why are we getting so much hate for just playing a killer that we really enjoy and really like? This seems quite unfair and targeted. So the divide was pretty evident, and this was after quite a long buildup of just back and forth between both sides of survivors. Again, seeing Wesker so much, having those weird hitboxes, And that's just the start of it. Another reason why a lot of these survivors really dislike Wesker is because a lot of them tunnel. And this isn't to just put a general coat over everything.
Well, it fits his kit. It fits his kit, right? Because if he hits you with your M2, you have to your first aid spray yourself, or else you're hindered and exposed. So you don't want that. So you have to first aid spray. When you first aid spray, you get Killer Instinct. So it's literally like a red beaming beacon of like, hey, come tunnel me. Hey, come tunnel me. Hey, come tunnel me. His base kit airs itself to tunneling. Like, I used to think that, like, Pyramid Head was probably the best tunneler in the game, but that was back when, like, you know, DS was actually good and worthwhile using. Now that you don't really see DS anymore, I think Wesker is the new best tunneler in the game for that exact reason right there of the Killer Instinct that you get off your first aid spray. If he wants to tunnel, you will be, in sometime soon after getting unhooked, have a red screaming beacon of where you're at, and he has a movement power, so he's going to be able to get to you reasonably quickly, and it's all she wrote for you. If a Wesker really wants to tunnel, his base kit helps him so much in doing so that he's probably the most efficient tunneling killer base kit in the game now, which is crazy.
It's just more mechanically inclined to do so. For example, if you have Ouroboros, let's say you make it to full Ouroboros, Wesker decides to gun after you, boom, he gets you. Well, he puts you on a hook, bada bing, bada boom, Survivor comes and saves you. Guess what? You still have about half of your Ouroboros infection on you. So you have one of two choices.
Which is why with like Hux, what they ended up doing is they made the biopods like snap and break when you get hooked to prevent him from just like hard tunneling you down with the slipstream on your back. That's why they did that, because they probably learned from this situation and made sure that wouldn't happen with him.
One, you either run to find a spray to spray yourself because the infection is already halfway, or two, you can sit by the hook and get healed by your friends. As you know, in a recent change, healing takes a lot longer than it used to be. And with most killers running Sloppy Butcher, etc., healing can be quite excessive. So by the time you get fully healed, you're already ready to go back to max Ouroboros.
Ready.
Once that happens, the Wesker knows where you're at. They're going to be coming for you. So you're either forced with the option of running around and injured to find a spray bottle to cure yourself, where Wesker could potentially see you and be like, hey, you're obviously injured, why would I not go for you? Or you're in a position where you're fully healed and now you are fully infected and the Wesker knows exactly where you're at. Now, some people take this to the next level where they just straight up tunnel the survivor that they're going for.
Many do.
And some people just use it the way that it's mechanically designed. And when you compare this to other killers like Freddy, who put you to sleep.
Yeah, but not a lot of people run healing build, Jansen.
When you're on
not
hook,
a lot of people
you're
do.
automatically awake.
It's
very questionable about why these mechanics are still in the game for a killer like Wesker. Giant Zia Fog Whisperer also pointed out quite a few other issues that Wesker has, one of those being exactly what we spoke about. He says that when unhooked, the survivor returns to 20 charges as if the survivor had already been infected by Wesker instead of 50 charges. As he highlights, this encourages killers to tunnel you, which can be incredibly frustrating for the other side. Another thing that he points out is to rework the video conference device add-on, which increases the passive infection by X amount of percentage.
I barely even see people run
when
that.
the survivor performs a repair, sabotage, or totem
Most people are running
action.
like Unicorn
The final
Medallion,
problem that he
Tendril,
pointed
stuff
out
like that.
was for the lab photo add-on, which
They're
makes
running a lot of his
Wesker
brown
far
add-ons.
too binary in his gameplay, taking a lot of the fun out of it. His suggestion was that when Wesker uses his bond on a survivor, if the collision is on a pallet or a breakable door, the pallet/door shatters and puts the survivor directly into the dying state. When Wesker uses the bond on a survivor, if the collision is on a generator, the generator actually explodes and ends up reducing some of the progress. As it stands right now, you basically can destroy the pallets and breakable walls while colliding with this, but it removes your ability to vault the pallets.
Lab photo? Like, I don't know. Like, I never looked at lab photo and went, that's a problem. In a lot of scenarios, it's better to just like vault over the pallet or whatever than it is to actually just break it with lab photo. I've never looked at lab photo and went, yeah, that's an OP add-on. That's part of the problem with the character. That's interesting.
Itself, which obviously makes sense. So to recap everything in a quick little summary, one, we have the very awkward collisions that you might see that can be initially frustrating. Two, we have add-ons in the game that just really should be reworked and looked at and maybe changed so it feels more fair on the other side. 3, it is super easy and encouraged mechanically for Wesker to tunnel survivors and put survivors at such a disadvantage when they're unhooked and they're already infected.
I think that's like the biggest problem.
It puts you in a position where you either need to run to get the spray to remove the infection, leaving yourself vulnerable, or take the heals and then get max infection, putting you in another bad position right away. And 4, it's the excessive amount of Weskers that we're seeing in the game. And again, this isn't the fault of the players playing Wesker, so that's why the community has slowly started to hate Wesker and dislike seeing them in their games for one of those reasons. And all of them combined just makes it a little bit more irritating. And for the other side, people absolutely love Wesker for the reasons that I've stated. They love the nitty gameplay that he has.
Yeah, he's fun to play.
He's fun. He has incredible voice lines. He has some pretty cool skins. And if you're a fan of Resident Evil, this is a slam dunk for you. So you pretty much have everything going for you if you are playing Wesker. Not to mention, for balance-wise, he's not map-dependent, so you can play him on any other map, unlike other killers in the game. And there's nothing new that has enticed any killer mains to play anybody else, because the chapters that proceeded after Wesker were admittingly
terrible,
a bit more
they were very boring,
so
very boring.
Kind of stuck around with Wesker, and that's where we're at. And it was so evident when this killer was kill switched and everybody realized, hey, we are at a crossroads here where some people really love Wesker and some people really hate Wesker. So how do we move past this? How do we fix this? What are the necessary steps to take? I've seen some folk talking about if there was a killer prevention similar to map prevention, the repeat prevention where you don't get the same map. What if they did that for killer? And initially, I thought this was a fantastic idea. I
think it would be like a good way to be like incentive, like just how we have a killer versus survivor incentive. Have like BP incentives for playing like lesser played killers, because people love blood points. People adore blood points. People will always go for more blood points. So that's an easy way to get people in and entice them.
Until I realized how difficult that will be. First of all, there are just so many variables that goes into it. Think about your regular matchmaking. If you're playing as a survivor, the game finds survivors in your local area, so your ping is pretty good. It all connects to one server that's local to you. On top of that, they also need to find survivors that have similar MMR to you. Once you've done that, you have to find a killer in that same region and that same MMR. Now, from the killers, because of balancing, you're more likely to see some of the stronger killers and more of the popular killers rather than the other ones. So you're likely to see nurses, spirits, Weskers, etc. So the pool for all the other killers are already pretty low, putting your chances of finding a different type of killer way lower than a 1 in 30 plus chance. Will be changed to about 1 in 12 just because half of those killers are realistically not being played, and the chances that they are also being played and in your region and MMR is even more unlikely. Now, to top that off, you also have to add in the next variable, which would be not to get the same killer in a row, which if you already, let's say, had a 1 in 10 chance, that's going to knock you down.
It's gonna make your
so that means if you were to look for a game with these new rules, you're probably going to have queue times that are hours.
Very long, yeah.
You're not going to be able to find games unless they're games that are incredibly laggy or not balanced in MMR. You're going to be getting brand new killers or survivors, unfortunately. Now, you may even argue that this is better than seeing the same killer every single time, but to each your own. I don't think this is something that they'll do in the future. The best course of action is to fix the few things that we mentioned. Number 1 is to make it so that when you're unhooked from the hook and you're already infected, that your infection just restarts. That would immediately relieve so much pressure and basically make it so Weskers aren't inclined to tunnel and survivors can actually have a fighting chance against them. Number 2 is to nerf a few of those really strong add-ons. You need to make it so that
I actually think his add-on design is really good. It really is just kind of like the killer instinct beacon, allowing people to essentially just like hunt you down and tunnel you really easily. Like that's literally it. And also the hindered, if you let it build up, like that's really it. Like the add-on, I think he has really good add-on design. I think Wesker has really good add-on design. I really do think it's just like what happens after you get off hook after being infected is like way too intense and lends itself too much to tunneling, and that's it. That's all.
Necessarily relying on those add-ons, but more skillful gameplay. And by doing that,
Hey, Vogan,
you might even see a decrease in Wesker players because those people that really did rely on the add-ons and not actually understand the fundamentals of the killers will not play them anymore. We kind of seen this effect with the Nurse and the Spirit, where they nerfed some of their really strong add-ons, and tons of people decided not to play them anymore.
I really don't think that that's an issue with Wesker. Like, I understand what they're talking about. That's an issue with Spirit that's finally getting fixed. That's an issue with Blight, which hopefully they'll fix. That was an issue with Nurse that they did fix. I don't think that's what's going on with Wesker. I really do think it's base kit with the infection. I don't think it's his add-ons at all. I completely disagree, actually. Zophilaya Fibers, hopefully you had fun. You're safe, friend.
When these killers are still super good if you truly understand how to play them and even use some of the regular add-ons that help them out so much more than game-breaking, overpoweredly strong add-ons.
I really don't think
that's about it. That's the black and white of how we can fix Wesker and slowly iron out the problems that both sides of the community are facing. I feel like this wouldn't be too bad on the killer side, as you'll still have a fun, witty, and strong killer to use, but you're not going to be super duper oppressive to the point where it seems unfair to the survivor side. And this is coming from a killer main. I'm a killer main. I play Wesker myself as well, so don't take this any type of way saying that I'm...
No, that took away one of my fun streaks once.
Crowd,
getting hit over
because
a pallet like that.
If you know how to truly play Wesker, you wouldn't need to rely on
content creator of the king,
and it will slowly start to iron out the unfun parts of this killer and just highlight the fun parts that people initially saw when they first received the character. Wesker is a fantastic killer in the game.
Wesker isn't balanced. Wesker is definitely, like, probably a top 5 killer in the game. He might be the 5, but he's definitely a top 5 killer in the game. That's not balanced. That's like S tier. That's like really, really good, right? When he's talking about fixing Wesker, we're just trying to kind of like mitigate like the fact that so many Weskers find it so easy to tunnel because of like the killer instinct and the hindered off of his base kit.
He's super strong, he is charismatic, he has funny voice lines, he has fantastic skins, and he just feels at home.
There's definitely more than
the
12
fog.
killers that are usable
and
in the game.
I want to see everybody love Wesker, because I enjoy playing Wesker. In the many games that I have played against Wesker, it has been fun, but again, after a while, it does get quite boring. Nonetheless, hopefully we can find a healthy middle ground moving forward, and I hope that answers the question on why the community hates Wesker. I've been your host, The King. I hope you...
Yeah, it really boils down to two things. It's just like the oversaturation of seeing Wesker in constant rotation almost every other game, and also his unique ability and what I believe to be one of the best abilities to tunnel in the game. Obviously, you fix that by, you know, taking away the killer instinct of the spray, or at least changing it to some extent. Possibly removing the hindered of max infection and doing that with something else that's not as crazy. And in terms of seeing him too much, you really can't prevent people from playing a fun character that's as fun to play as Wesker, but you can give incentives to play other characters, and that's probably the way I would go about it. I'm gonna unpause so he can move his face there. That was not a flattering angle. But that's what I would do, is I would give incentives, like we have with Killer and Survivor incentives, give incentives to play lesser played killers, because people go wherever the blood points are. That's just how DBD players are. They go wherever the blood points go. So if you give incentive to play other characters, they will do it. If the blood points are involved. You don't think removing kill instinct for sprays would be a good idea? Why? I am genuinely intrigued. Why? You think it's vital for Wesker to have the ability to tunnel people, despite being a top 5 killer in the game? What is it necessary for? I'm 100% intrigued. I'm curious. Last one killer to play was Blight. True. Movement killers are generally fun. Ranged killers are generally fun. That's how it goes. I tier add-on? Well, people will just start running that add-on then. Like Myers with Tombstone. You know, like people just run the Tombstone add-on because it's the only thing that makes them good. And it's not that... Those add-ons are rare. One's a purple, one's an eerie. We'll run those all the time. On Nemi? Yeah, because Nemi doesn't have a movement ability. He can't be on you in 2 seconds. And also, if he essentially is 115 man with fists, because he has to reinfect you to have his ability. Whereas that's not the case with Wesker. It's not nearly as intense. It's still really good, and it still does aid him to tunneling, to help tunnel survivors. But like you said, without lack of movement ability to get there super quickly, and also having to reinfect them as a time sink, like there's some preventative measures there that makes it like not as efficient as it is on Wesker. So, yeah, I really don't see, because like honestly, like I play Wesker a lot. I play Wesker at least once or twice at Killer Stream, and I never need to go back to Killer Instinct to ever win my games, like ever. Like I don't need to do it. I literally just don't need to do it. So I don't know what reason he would need it, considering the fact that he's not in a situation where if you took it away he would be that significantly weaker, like at all. Like he has a fantastic base kit, very very strong, very very good base kit. Like his ability is like not on par with Blythe, but like we were talking about, like a very very good and very very strong rush ability. It's very very good. Map mobility, anti-chase, it's just great. Can't really go wrong with it. Sprays are an action to progress the game and not designed to tunnel survivor. Well, that's what it turned out to be, though. Like, you can say that's not what they were designed for, but that's what they do, right? Just like how Skull Merchant's drones weren't designed to just sit over 3 gens, a very, very tight 3-gen, and cause her to camp the whole match. That's what they got used for, right? That's when they end up getting used for. So you can't say that, oh, well, it wasn't the intention. That's what it's being used for. That's what's happening. You go back and reinfect them? No. Because if they spray, you know exactly where they are, and you can just use your bound to just get their lickety-split and just tunnel them down, right? Whereas typically a survivor that doesn't want to get tunneled can go to the opposite side of the map and like play safe, hide, go find a teammate and get healed. They don't have that option if they're on a timer because of the infection. Killer Instinct goes off, the Wesker's on them in like 2 seconds because they have a movement ability as part of their power. It is in no way better at all, especially if we're considering like somebody who really, really wants to win and sweat, better at all to go after the other person. Like not even remotely, not even on what planet would it be better to go after the other person when you already have a hook on that other person? To go after the fresh guy. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, intent does not triumph. What it's used for does. Right? If everybody behaved as they intended, if everything went according to plan, we would never have issues with like anything, not just DVD, but life. It's the least efficient way to tunnel them out? No, it's... What are you talking about? Respectfully, I have no clue what you're talking about. Like, I actually have no clue. What do you mean it's the least efficient way to tunnel them out? You literally get a red beaming beacon of where they are, and you go there and you hook them again. You have a quick chase and you hook them again. And then they gotta spray again, so you get another red beaming beacon of where they are, and then you go there, and then you down them again, and now they're dead. Like how is any of this inefficient? This is efficient, which is the discussion, which is why it's a problem. If you're going to want to tunnel them out, you're going to want to slam them into another survivor into them, and apply deep wound, then down them. That's only efficient if they're grouped up. Which, why would you be spraying next to someone? Why would you be spraying next to someone? Like almost, there's like essentially besides like 2 survivors like spraying each other, which very very rarely happens. That's not really a situation to not really a good situation. You can slam the other survivor into the rescue survivor. Yes, I know that, Vulcan. I'm aware. I play the video game. I know that. But what happens here? I'm gonna walk with you here. You go right back to hook. You slam the person into the other survivor. That other survivor, depending on where they're at in the environment, depending on where that hook is, even if you slam the healthy survivor into the other survivor, there is a cooldown for that. You have to, grab them, push them into the other guy, drop him, let your power go away, and then you have access to your character again. In that time, depending on where you're at, if there's a bunch of tiles around, if that survivor has sprint burst or lithe, the person that was going to get tunneled can just hit a window, lithe very, very far away, or sprint burst very, very far away, potentially lose the killer by hiding, find another survivor to get healed. No. Like, there's that is the most inefficient way to tunnel with that character. That's inefficient. You're giving them a chance to escape. Yeah, you're giving the guy that just came off the hook a chance to escape by going after someone else at the hook. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, obviously the best way to do it would be to just, like, if they do escape you somehow, you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna wait for you to Killer Instinct and then I'll go hunt you down, you know? That's obviously the most efficient way to go about it. I've not had a single survivor escape me. You've never, ever, in the history of playing this character, ever had a survivor escape you. Huh. You must be an incredible killer main. You have never, ever, not once, not even slightly, not even a little bit, ever had that happen. Why don't you stream? Do you not have the internet infrastructure for it? Or, like, why do you not stream? Because if you're that good that, like, you literally never ever fail, that's content. That's crazy. That makes you incredibly good at the game if you literally never ever fuck up ever. Like, if you literally never ever mess up ever, stream that. I would love to see that. I would love to see you never ever lose in any way in terms of efficiency. Like, if you're literally that giga efficient, like, you are one of the best killer players on the planet. Like, legitimately. Because that's crazy. If you're playing at that level of efficiency where, like, nothing bad ever happens. Because nobody plays at that level of efficiency. Comp players don't. Big streamers don't. People fuck up all the time. It just happens. It's part of being human. Stuff doesn't go as planned. Sometimes you get iframes off the hook. Sometimes the other person has borrowed time and it doesn't work out. You're like, I waited out the endurance, but then they still had it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong at a hook trade situation. You know? So the fact that you've never ever had anything go wrong with that, literally ever, is pretty phenomenal. Pretty phenomenal. So that's pretty crazy. You should stream that. Or like what they said, you know, or at least record your matches. Because even if you have really, really bad upload speed, you will eventually be able to upload those matches that you record. So I would start recording those. Because if you're that level of efficiency, you're that good at the video game, that's nutty, and I would love to see that. But until I see that, I'm going to have to just reasonably assume that you're flawed just like everybody is. You're not perfect. And sometimes people do get away. And it's much safer to wait for the red beacon of Killer Instinct to let you know exactly where they are. Which they will always have to do when they're infected off hook. I'm going to have to assume that until I see the completely perfect gameplay that you were proposing that you have. Perfect, have you seen my spirit? Yeah. Thanks, McLean. Thanks, McLean. Thanks, McLean. That's just what goes through my head. But I guess that doesn't have anything to do with spirit, I suppose. Thanks, McLean. Thanks, McLean. Hey, Totos. How's it going, friend? How are you? How's your 2S day? Try to stream sometime in the future? Good. You should. Because if you're playing at this level of efficiency that you never fail ever, there's no reason you would not be like an easy 100 viewer Andy off the bat. Easy number one, like easy 100 viewer Andy right off the bat. Never ever making any mistakes ever. Like that's, like I don't see Otts do that. I see Otts mess up a fair bit. That's actually a fun idea I had once. It was like not doing a match review of like you guys, but doing a match review of like a really big streamer play. Just to kind of see like how different that would be. Like I don't even see Otts do that. I don't see Otts play with that level of extreme efficiency where he never fails or never makes mistakes ever. So if you're doing what Otts can't do, that's like, that's crazy. And you shouldn't let that talent just sit there. Boy King looks snazzy. Yeah, we were just watching the video on how to make Wesker more fun to face, because a lot of people are not like the biggest fan of Wesker for obvious reasons. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. That would be my suggestion. Would be he doesn't really need the Killer Instinct off of spraying, or you know, I had an idea once. Is like if you want to hide the Killer Instinct, spray each other. Make it a two-person thing. Like actually do make it a two-person thing. If you spray another survivor, like you do an altruistic action, it hides the Killer Instinct. Could do it that way. I wouldn't be against removing entirely, but if you could do if it was an altruistic spray, removes the Killer Instinct, that'd be cool. And also just making the hitbox look visually cleaner. That way he doesn't look like you're getting hit by BS, which is almost every single Wesker bound. So, yeah, that's kind of what I would do to make him feel better.